Hi, Taylor.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm trying to get it onto Facebook. I had to restart my computer.
Good times.
How's the cat?
It's looking like she does have asthma, which
Really?
I didn't even know was a thing. So she's enjoying exercising my wallet, but she's okay.
Great way to put it.
I have to laugh about it because otherwise I'll cry.
I know.
No, she's okay. She got some x-rays today and everything. And we're trying some meds, but then she's gonna have to go on an inhaler. And they're gonna have to call it into like a human pharmacy. So she goes on the same kind of puffer that people might, and then I have to get like the little mask that you use for children that have asthma and give my cat puffs from an inhaler.
I was just about to ask, like, how does that work? Do you just wrap her lips around the thing and like...
Yeah, there's like a mask you can use for if babies have asthma or whatever.
Okay.
And it's a similar concept, apparently. I don't know. I'm sure it's going to be a learning process for me.
Oh, I'll pray for you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, holy moly. Brian, how are you, man?
I am doing well.
Are you just here because I promised that I'd have slides today?
That's the only reason.
That's it. All right, good. I do got slides.
Also, did you have a nice birthday?
I did. Thank you very much. It was a lovely day.
Well, happy belated birthday. When was your birthday?
On Sunday, the 4th.
Oh, wow, man. The whole country celebrated your birthday.
Yeah, it makes finding plans on my birthday very easy.
Yeah, right. All right, so we'll get going. Let me share my screen here. And Taylor, you do see everything good on Facebook, right?
It looks good. Yeah, and you beat me to the punch, obviously, with the link.
That's always just my simple win for the day.
I'm glad that that can happen. I can be part of it. I'll just be extra slow each time to make sure. But you're on the ball anyway. I don't even need to be slow.
That's right. Okay, so while I'm kind of doing the little introduction, Taylor, you can play along as always. Brian, I'm sure you are going to play along and be an active participant, so that's awesome. And then anybody else that is watching this on Facebook, number one, we encourage you to join on Zoom so you can actually be an active participant. But if you kind of want to be a little bit more passive and you're watching this live, or maybe you're watching it after the fact, what you're going to need to do right now is get a blank sheet of paper and basically make 4 columns. So I find it, I can't explain this super well, but you're going to have your paper look kind of like this. So draw a line across from left to right towards the top, and then 3 vertical lines so that you have 4 fairly equal columns. And this will help us organize the information that we're going to talk about today. We got one more person joining us on Zoom. Michelle, is that right? Michelle, are you with us? She's connecting. Cool. All right, so today what we're gonna do is dive just a little bit deeper into programming. I wanna make your guys' lives easier when it comes to making your programming decisions, and I've kind of boiled it down to 4 simple steps. Now, of course, what I'm talking about here is to integrate the SEMM model into your programming. But if you guys don't use SEMM or use something similar, or even if it's completely different, this will still work. The principles remain the same. Why do we care about this? Number one is that programming, quite simply, can be overwhelming. So if you are a new coach, veteran coach, it is something that can just be overwhelming. And depending upon the number of either individuals that you program for instance, if you're doing a good amount of personal training, the time component can really add up. If you're doing it for specialty courses, like if you run an Olympic weightlifting specialty course, we actually had, Taylor, you'll appreciate this, we had a rowing specialty course a number of different times at our gym years ago. If you do gymnastics specialty courses. All of this stuff involves getting some really effective programming. So it can certainly become overwhelming. So that's one reason why we're going over this today. Number two is that there's just a ton of information at a coach's fingertips these days. So we're living in abundance of the information age, and that overload can really lead to paralysis by analysis, or what one of the gym owners that I work with hand in hand, his name is Brendan. He owns Strong Tower. He calls it infobesity, which I want to trademark that term for Two Brain Coaching because I don't think that he has. But that's just information overload. So there's this massive consumption of all things training. And what ends up happening to great coaches is you just get paralyzed because there's so much going on. Just some quick examples of information overload. It can be training cycles. Are you running a periodized model linear? Are you doing undulating periodization? Are you doing daily undulating linear periodization? Are you doing a 5-3-1 Wendler cycle? Are you modifying reps, tempo, sets, exercise selection? What methodology are you using? What about energy systems? And then we get into sleep and nutrition and managing stress. There is a lot of different variables, and that can just really stop a coach in its tracks from writing any sort of program whatsoever, or just taking an infinite amount of time that just doesn't really make sense. So that's number two. And then point number three builds on that is I want you to develop and or follow a routine in how you design programs. So my routine that I follow today has probably been the same for about the past 6 to 8 years, give or take. But before that, it was vastly different, and it just changed over time. And it's not the exact same today that it was, say, 6 years ago, but it's very close. I'm just making little efficiency changes here and there. But the point is that I have a very strict routine when it comes to actually writing programming, which I do for a number of individual design clients and then also for our gym at large. So that's why I think this is super important for you guys, especially as coaches. We just want you to maximize your time. So the Cliff's Notes version of today is the KISS principle. And I'll relay it the way that my dad did. He was a very nice gentleman. He said, keep it super simple, not keep it simple or keep it simple, stupid. So keep it super simple when it comes to writing your program. You need to answer 4 questions. And this is actually going to be at the top of each of those 4 columns that you drew. Michelle, I don't know if you were here, but you need a blank piece of paper to follow along with 4 columns on it. And at the top of each column, you're going to write one of these questions. So the first column, what do you know? Oh, you're driving. Never mind, Michelle. Don't write anything as you're driving, but you can certainly participate unless you're going to curse at other drivers around you, in which case maybe that's a different call. So the first column is what do you know as a coach? The second is what do they want to do? Third is what can they do? And then the fourth and final column is what do they need to do? And this is really the 4 steps right here. If you answer these questions, program design really takes care of itself. The first one is definitely going to take the most time. So I'm going to need a lot of participation from you guys. The first thing that we're going to go over is what do you specifically know when it comes to health and fitness programming? And I want you guys, when you unmute yourself and raise your hand and say the things that are on your mind, I want you to be very granular and not philosophical. So don't be thinking big picture, and don't worry about why somebody should do X instead of Y or Z. Don't worry about, oh, I know this works because of ABC. I don't care about that. We're talking about 3 sets of 5 for 2 exercises. Pairing complementary exercises is good for novices, but not advanced trainees or something like that. That's what I mean when I speak on what do you know when it comes to health and fitness programming. Okay. The other thing that this is really, really good use of your time to do is it helps you stay within your scope of practice. So I see this come up a lot in the Two Brain Coaches Facebook group, but there's a lot of coaches that are asking, well, my client presents with this neck pain or this shoulder pain, and I've tried ABC, XYZ. It's not getting better. What should I do? And I'm always quick to reference one specific article that we wrote on behalf of Two Brain Business, talking about scope of practice and referring out to a medical professional, just because if you don't have the answers, don't try to create them in the moment. Your time is best spent maybe parking your ego just a little bit and then referring them to a medical professional. So that's why taking time on this part is so good. And I put a whole bunch of examples up here. And I'm not going to read all of them, but some of the things that you might know is you might be very well versed in the conjugate method. You might be super well versed in the CrossFit methodology, couplets and triplets, go long every now and again, go heavy every now and again, things like that. You might be super well versed in coaching Olympic weightlifting, paleo, macros, circadian rhythm. Are you very good working, programming for peri or postmenopausal clientele? How about mobility and physical therapy? So left to right on my screen, Taylor, give me one thing that you specifically know about health and fitness programming.
Specifically, I could definitely help people improve their rowing machine form.
Yes, rowing technique. Perfect. All right. All right, Brian, give me something that you know.
One size does not fit all.
Ooh, okay. Can you give me a tangible example of that? So that's, I would say, kind of big picture, which I love, but give me an example of that.
Okay, so like, let's say someone comes in with a goal of simple and sinister, like performing either the simple goal or the sinister goal. Not everyone's going to be on the same part of that journey to get the 100 swings and 10 get-ups in 16 minutes. So that's where we would see where they're at, what they can do, and what they need to do.
Perfect. I love it. So basically like programming somebody for that, particular test. So 100, was it 100 swings and 10 get-ups?
Yeah, 5 minutes of swings, 10 minutes of get-ups.
Okay. Oh, holy crap. 10 minutes of get-ups. Good Lord. All right, cool. Michelle, if you're able, can you participate? Tell me something you know about health and fitness.
I'm good at programming for people that want to run fast and lift heavy in the same week.
Oh, run fast and lift heavy in same week. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go around the room one more time. So Taylor, give me one more thing that you know, and then Brian and Michelle, you guys have a minute ahead to think.
But I don't get a minute to think. Dang it.
Sorry, I didn't preface that.
I may have to ponder for a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, let me ponder for a sec. Maybe Brian's ready.
What's something else you know, man?
Not all progression is linear. So like, just because we have a game plan in place and we start doing one thing doesn't mean that we're going to have to adhere to that verbatim. We can make adjustments accordingly as we go.
Perfect. All right. Speaks a lot to the individuality of things, I hear. Okay, Michelle, are you ready with number 2?
Sure. Kind of builds on number 1, but I'm good at building running intervals and tempo runs and that sort of thing.
Ooh, tempo running. So you're an endurance guru is something I'm gathering.
Oh, yeah. I like it.
All right. And then if I need anything kettlebell swing oriented, I should have known this, Brian, from day one with the 2 that are behind you. So, all right. And then, of course, Taylor is my rowing guru, but maybe she's got something else. So you ready, Taylor?
I definitely wouldn't say I'm like formally educated on the matter, but I am quite aware of the value of like mindset and mental health in matters. One of my like sort of, I wouldn't say side hustle, but free side hustles, volunteer things is moderating a fitness and mental health group. So I hear a lot on that front.
That's really cool. We might have to talk more about that later offline. I like that. Cool. All right. I'm going to press Brian and Michelle one more time, but I'm going to be a little bit more specific and see if I was struggling with my sleep, Brian, do you feel competent that you could figure out something to help me get better at sleep?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. So you know something about sleep. And then Michelle, for you, do you know, I'm really struggling with my nutrition. I don't have any specifics for you, but do you feel like you could help me with nutrition?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. So we've got those covered, and Taylor even covered like the mindset, mental health. So we've got actually all 4 pillars, and it was not planned. Okay, so what I would encourage you guys to do is take time to exhaust that list as far as you possibly can. All right. No, you're not going to do that right now, but like offline, this is actually going to be your homework piece when we get down to the very, very end is figuring out with some clarity, what do you specifically know about health and fitness programming? Okay. So the second column is the question that we put at the top of that is in reference to your client. We need to know, what do they want to do? Okay. And I think we've all been around long enough, worked with enough clients, it sounds like, that we have run into the client that says, well, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. Or I don't want to do thrusters. I prefer to just ride the bike. Or I don't want to do Brian's sadistic 5 minutes of swings and 10 minutes of get ups. Maybe I'll do 30 seconds of each. Okay. So when we talk about figuring out like I still can't get over that. That is like just so, Brian, I'm not hiring you as my coach if that's what the prescription would be. I'm just going to throw that out there. Okay. Let me stay on track. So one of the things that we can get very clear on is the bulk of this information on what our clients want to do is going to happen in the consultation or no sweat intro or whatever you guys call your one-on-one meetings with your specific clients. Now, of course, we get this in the in-between moments if they're in class or they're in a one-on-one session with us, and we figure out, oh yeah, they like to do this, they want to do more of that. Yes. But a lot of this can really be teased out if we learn to ask really, really good, powerful questions when we get the sit down, nothing else on the agenda except just that conversation. Okay. And it does a couple of things when we can kind of parse these things out with more detail. The first is we understand that it speaks to their beliefs in health and fitness. I'll give you a great example. If you're having a conversation with a client and you're asking them about, their experience in health and fitness, or tell me about a time that you were consistently working out and what exercises were you doing and what exercises are you comfortable doing and not comfortable doing. And maybe they let on that, we used to do this thing where you would pick up something heavy off the ground and you load a barbell and you say, oh yeah, the deadlift. Yeah, that's it, the deadlift. Yeah, those always hurt me. And so I don't want anything to do with a deadlift. Okay. So that gives me very good insight into what they believe in terms of their health and fitness progression. So you can use that to inform your program design and your conversations that you're going to have with your client down the road. The other thing, and I kind of alluded to this a second ago, is it speaks to training age and experience. So in just the brief comment that I made earlier about Brian's prescription of 5 minutes of swings and 10 minutes of get-ups, what he might actually glean from that is, well, there's a chance that Josh has done something like this before, and he can speak to the pain that is going to come from doing this kind of workout. And you would be right. I have actually gone through that. So I can speak to having an experience through that. And again, training age will tell you a lot about what clients want to do. The more training age that they have, the more concrete details, the more granular they're going to be able to get with you in figuring out, okay, what does this client want to do? And here are some examples. We've all seen these. They want to lose weight. They want to get stronger. They want to either maintain or gain function for their life. We've also had clients that have been with us for a while that say, you know what, I want to dabble in this thing called high intensity fitness. I want to do the complex movements. I want to do a ring muscle up while I'm snatching a barbell with my feet. All right. I want novelty. I want to make sure that I'm doing something different every day so that I don't get bored. And we're not putting any judgment on any of these things that our clients are telling us. This is just kind of information for us to figure out, okay, what do they want to do? Okay. What I want to know from you guys, and I'm going to actually start on the opposite end. So Michelle, you're up first. Can you give me an example of something that a client has told you that they want? What they want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I do have a client who said, you know, she doesn't want any of the CrossFit or heavy barbell stuff. She just wants to function better in her everyday life.
Okay.
She's one of my older clients, and that was her big goal. She just wants to feel better and just have a better quality of life.
Awesome. Love it. Okay, Brian, what about you, man? What's something that you've had a client tell you that they want to do?
Well, it would be fitting for me to stay on course and say someone wanted to achieve sinister.
It's like, if you say that, I won't believe anything else that you say for this call. Okay, cool. So they do want to do that test. All right. So could we, I don't want to box this in, but is it okay to say that they've established a fitness test that they want to try out?
Oh yeah, I mean,
Okay.
and they've actually already accomplished sinister. Now we're just fine tuning it.
Oh man, I love this. Okay. All right, Taylor, what about you?
Things that clients want, I don't have any of those, but things
What
that
about
I
you?
want to do.
Yeah.
I am really bad at cardio, like just absolutely shamefully bad at cardio. So I'm working through couch to 5K right now
Yes.
to try and get my first 5K in the fall, which I signed up for already, so I have to.
Yes. Congratulations. Now you've got a something to work towards, and you got a plan for it.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. We'll go back the other way. Michelle, I see you're out of your car, not driving anymore. That's a plus. Don't want you distracted. Give me something else that another client has said that they want to achieve.
Yeah, I have another client who wants to be able to swim a mile and lift heavy things.
Swim 1 mile and lift heavy things. Awesome. Okay. Brian?
I want to comment on, I love the emphasis of so many people wanting to lift heavy things. That's great. But another one is achieving their first push-up.
Awesome. First push-up. Okay. Taylor, do you have a specific goal for this 5K, or is it like completion? Is it a time? Is it anything like that?
It's just completion.
Okay.
I was definitely in much better shape prior to the pandemic. I was doing like 5-6 days a week of high intensity interval training. And moved much better. So this is my way to kind of introduce myself back into doing more cardio and things like that. So no time goal, just doing it.
Awesome. Cool. Just as a quick, completely unrelated aside, I don't know if you guys follow the weather down here in Florida. I don't know why anybody else would, but we have a approaching hurricane apparently, and everything is shutting down. And I just heard rain and wind kicking up. So fingers crossed we don't lose connection. But if we do, I will hop back on my phone, because I grew up in Florida. Hurricanes don't really bug me. So I'm not worried about that. My GM texted me last night, said, hey, you think we're going to need to close? No, we're not closing. Rain will be just fine. So just want to toss that out there. Okay. Last note about training agent experience. I want to make sure that I highlight this. It's also an area where you can find out where people have had successes and failures in the past. Okay. So if I am a client of Brian's and I talk about, you know, I've done this thing, or I've tried this thing before, where it's like you swing a kettlebell for 5 minutes unbroken without stopping. I tore my hands up, you know, then my shoulder started hurting me, and I really just, I don't know how I feel about doing that again. What he's taking in there is, okay, this is an area that Josh potentially feels like he has failed before. So keeping all that like together is super, super important when we're coming up with our design for our clients. Going to move to the third column now, which is what can your client do like today? And this is discovered through two areas. One that we hit on prior, which is the consultation. But then two, we're going to get even a little bit more granular here, and it's going to be through our assessment. We call it an assessment. You might call it an on-ramp. You might call it a movement screen, whatever it is. Basically, the first time that you're watching your client move, you're figuring out how they sleep, what their nutrition is like, how they manage their stress. All of these are components, of a really, really good assessment. And that's just through the lens of what we call the SEMM model here at Two Brain Coaching. One of the things that this does when you look at what they can do is it speaks to the resources that they have available. And remember, I think we talked about this last time or the time before, there's 4 different kinds of resources that people can have available to them. Time, money, skills and tools, and then the last one being relationships and support. And those will all influence what somebody can do. When we're looking at just a movement perspective, a skill or tool, that might be the area that you hone in on. So do they have the skill to take a kettlebell overhead, or can they only go to eye level, right? Okay. The other thing that it defines when we figure out, what is all in this column is it defines their current ability. Can they put their arms over their head? Can they squat down below parallel? Can they ride an assault bike for 10 minutes without getting off or without stopping? Can they walk for 90 minutes a week? Or do they have the time resource available to work out 5 hours per week? Those are 2 completely different available resources for somebody. Can they do movement patterns with a load or with no load? Okay. Is this person single with no kids versus married and they have 6 kids? The resource of time here is going to be completely different. So the expectation of what that person can do has to adjust accordingly. Okay. And there's a couple of other examples there too. But really, I think the point that I want to drive home on this piece in terms of what they can do is that this should highlight for you, the coach, the beginning stage of their program. Okay. So here's a great example that I always love to give. If you have a assessment session where you are putting them through a battery of movements, maybe you watch how they perform a functional movement screen, and that just works them over. Like they need to sit down, take a breather between things that you're having them do. They need to get some water. They're getting lightheaded. Okay, that is great insight into this client's capability, what they can do. So perhaps the first quote unquote real session that they have with you at your gym is just a downgraded version of the assessment, because we want to make sure that they can actually go through this, recover and adapt and grow, instead of just saying, okay, well, we put you through the assessment. Now you're going to jump into the group, or we're going to jump into some one-on-one stuff that's completely different than what we just did from an assessment session. Okay. So we're going to start with Brian this time. Brian, keeping the same theme of your Sinister fitness testing. What does that look like from an assessment standpoint? Do you break somebody in and say, let me see how long you can swing a kettlebell for? Like what do you do for that?
It kind of depends on, if it's a practice that they've been consistent with. Let's say that they haven't been doing swings in a while. We would start to see how their hinge looks, how their two-handed swing looks, and then start to get into single arm swings as long as the two-hand stuff feels good. Make sure they're confident with the Turkish getup, and then we would do like a baseline to see how well they can perform.
Awesome. Okay, great. So you're trying to get just like a baseline level of, here's this thing. You've shown me that you've got the competency to express this movement pattern. Now we're going to set a clock, whether it's for a minute, 5 minutes, what have you, and then they're going to get a score. Okay, perfect. Michelle, can you give me an example of something that your clients are able to do or can do right now?
Yeah, so all of my personal training clients are online, so I kind of have to go about it a little bit differently. I take a lot of what they can do kind of by their word, what they say they've been doing, what they've been doing, and then I like to start out their first week below what they say they can do, and
Love it.
then we kind of build from there. So my swimmer girl, she said she's like, I can swim for about an hour in the pool. So I started off with like, I think it was maybe 45 minutes or something like that. Like I started below what she said she could do, and then I built from there. And then I had another lady who said, I was doing this with my old personal trainer, but that was 6 months ago. So with her, I started even a little bit lower and built her up from there. So it's, I think, a little bit different than having someone in front of you working with them.
Yeah.
I also, during that first week, I have them send me a lot of videos to kind of figure out their movement
Perfect.
patterns.
Yeah, so you can see them move and how they organize, things like that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Taylor, just because I know your background, what can you do for a 2K row?
So they do a lot of like time trials essentially. I have rowing experience at a couple of different clubs in different places in the world, and one place would do like in the boat, you do a 2K, you do, sometimes they do 500-meter sprints, things like that. It depends what they were doing. Sometimes you do like seat races to find out who was a better combination in what boat. And then also like 2Ks on the erg, just checking your time.
Yeah. Okay, great. So we've got a 2K row time to establish like what they can do. We've got a 500-meter sprint time to figure out what they can do. All right. Last thing, does anybody want to share anything else real quick before we go to number 4? Are we good? Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I feel like my assessment was a little vague. So like the goal is to do 10 single arm swings every 30 seconds for 5 minutes, right? So we would basically, based off how they feel on the warm up, see what they can do for up to 10 swings during those 5 minutes, kind of as their baseline.
Got it. Okay.
Give it a little more like unique assessment.
Love it. Perfect. Okay, so first, just as a quick recap, we figured out like what do you guys know? Second, we figure out, okay, what does the client want to do? Third, we just talked about, well, it's great to know what they want to do. Well, what can they do? Because those could be super, super far apart, or they could be right next to each other, which is always the beautiful, thing that rarely happens within coaching, but sometimes it does. That's like the unicorn, where it's like what they can do and what they want to do are very close to each other. And then that kind of bleeds into the last one, which is going to fill up column 4. We've got to figure out, okay, we've got this goal of I want to run a 5K and I want to do it without stopping. I want to do the Sinister fitness test. I want to be able to swim for 1 hour, but at a faster pace. What do they need to do to get there? I don't need to know what steps, 7 through 99 are, but I should probably have somewhat of an idea of, well, for Michelle's swimmer, am I going to have her on day 1 after I figure out that she can swim in the pool for an hour? Am I going to have her doing a ton of squatting and push-ups? I don't know. Does she need to do that to be able to swim at a faster pace? I'm sure that as coaches, we could all make the argument of how that could translate to improved performance in the swim. But I'm just going to take a wild stab in the dark and say, Michelle, that's probably not what you had her doing on days 1 through 50. Okay. So it's just kind of this logical progression. I know where they want to go. Okay, great. What do I need to get this client to do in order to move them in that direction? And when you simplify it like that, what it allows you as a coach to do is it gives you and them an opportunity for simple, sustainable progress. Back when we were going over what the very first column, Brian made a really great point to say that progression is not always linear, right? When we're taking these really, really small steps, it allows us to be zoomed in on, okay, did this thing that I just had them do move them a step closer or not. Because we may have had 14 clients that it did make a positive impact, but on the 15th, if it doesn't, we're not going to continue to go down that road, right? So it gives us that opportunity for simple, sustainable progress. And then you look at, okay, what did their assessment tell you, and start there. So Michelle, you already detailed this, right? Your swimmer could go for an hour, which I have a pool in my backyard and 2 little kids, and 5 minutes is like my cap for not being able to grab onto the side or put my feet down. So the fact that she can swim for an hour is remarkable. But what you also detailed is like that was part of your assessment. She told you that she could do this, and like that is where your design started. And you actually took the next step of saying, okay, I know you can go for an hour, but we're actually going to go back a little bit, because maybe we want you to go for 45 minutes, but at a little bit quicker of a pace. Or maybe we want you to do 45-minute repeats, so the volume of your swimming increases. But the point being that Michelle didn't say, okay, you swam for an hour, we're going to do squats and push-ups. The assessment said swim for an hour. That's where I'm going to take my first cue. Okay, so always go back to what did the assessment tell you, and then start there. So, Brian, I'm going to start with you, man. So I came to see you, and you said 10 by 30-second one-arm swings. Is that right?
Yeah, there's multiple ways you can do that, but typically it's 10 swings every 30 seconds. You go for 5 minutes.
Cool. So if I only made it for 3 minutes and I was like, that's it, tapping out, what do we do from there?
Part of the assessment would be, did we go too heavy? Like, why did we only make it 3 minutes? You know, was the weight too heavy that we just gassed out and fatigued before we could perform any reps? Or was it like a cardio thing where we just couldn't catch our breath soon enough to go to that next set?
Yeah, so I suffer from the same malady that Taylor does. My cardio is not great. So let's say that it was that. It wasn't that it was too heavy, but it was my cardio. So what are you going to do for me? Like, I don't care about the 6-month plan, but like, what do you see day 1, day 2 for taking my swing capacity up, knowing that it's cardio?
We'd probably go like to an EMOM format, where it's, instead of every 30 seconds, you have a full minute. And that typically will allow you to rest a little bit longer.
Awesome. Love it. Very to the point. Like that's it in a nutshell. It's like, I want to be able to do this. You saw what I can do. And then, okay, knowing that you want to do this thing, here's what you need to do. We're going to start with an EMOM, and here's why. Okay, perfect. Michelle, your swimmer that can go for an hour. Why go to 45 minutes, and what does your training look like for her for like that day?
Yeah, I went down to 45 minutes. I gave her, typical warm up, cool down. And then in the middle, we did intervals, like sprints. We did those. And then we also worked on like her flip turns and her breathing technique. So we kind of, we did a lot in 45 minutes, but we got it in there. I think the big focus though for her, she's wanting to swim that mile in a pretty decent time. So interval training was kind of where I started with her.
Love that. Love that. So good. So, because at first glance, it's like, oh, okay, well, I want to be more effective at the hour. I take it down to 45. Well, is that going to get me better? Well, part of that, especially it sounds like she's in a pool, is you're going to have to swim for an hour. You're going to do a lot of flip turns. And so now we're challenging something different about the actual swim, not the time, but neurologically, she's going to get fatigued just from learning whether it's different technique, better technique for the flip turn, and then also her breathing mechanics. So time in pool, maybe only 45 minutes, but the impact is going to far exceed that. Awesome. Okay. Taylor, if you've got a boat that can row a 2K in say 7 minutes, and I want to do 6 minutes, what's something that you think I need to do?
In my experience in the past, there were a lot of it's similar kind of intervals as well, like harder intervals. They definitely didn't program us like longer rows for that purpose. It was much more sort of developing. I would almost say like they might ask us to do extra cardio outside of the boat as well. But also just making sure that everyone's form is optimized and that they're really pushing down with their legs. So even some leg strength might factor into that as well.
Oh, I like that. I'm gonna add that in there too. Leg strength. Okay, cool. Perfect. All right. Anybody else want to add anything, sprinkle on top, what you would do, what somebody would need to do? What about if I want to get a strict pull-up and I'm close but no cigar, so I've got some decent strength, but you can't say, oh, I want to work on strength, so leave movement out of it. What's another intervention potentially that you would say, look, I know you really want to get a pull-up, maybe we need to look at this other pillar? Anybody?
Maybe like checking their overhead strength and like grip strength.
Yeah.
Something like.
Okay. So pull up is a big component of it is strength to weight ratio, right? So perhaps we go all the way back to my assessment and maybe I'm just a little too heavy to be able to do a pull up. And we have conversation with the client that is around nutrition. So you guys said comfortable talking about nutrition. So that also could be something that they need to do. And I wanted to make sure that I put something in there like that, because I think we all have clients where we know, like, man, if they just dialed in their nutrition, or if they just did one thing to their nutrition, or if they just, got their sleep a little bit better, it could make a monumental difference versus just chasing extra things to do in the gym, right? And so we know that they need to do something like that, but perhaps it's not going to fall in line with what they want to do. Okay. And so those are super important things to keep in mind. So now what I need you to do is take out or just flip your sheet of paper over to the other blank side. And you're going to make a Venn diagram. Don't do it quite yet, with 4 circles. All right. And now, there's no judgment on this call, because I don't know if you can see, I tried drawing one on my whiteboard back here. That one didn't come out so well. I tried drawing a couple on my my paper when I was prepping for the call, but that didn't come out so well. So don't feel bad. What I finally did is I have these little coasters on my desk. Look at appropriately. They're the colors of Olympic weightlifting plates. So I use that. And so if yours doesn't look as good as this does, that's okay. But this is what it needs to look like. Something like this. Everybody get a good picture of that? Good? Okay. I like, so far, people are finding circular objects to do this with. Learn from others' mistakes. Taylor, is this the first office hours where we've done arts and crafts on the call together? Yes. This is amazing. I can't hear you. What was that?
I was just mouthing, not going well. I don't know if you ever saw that video that was viral like quite a few years ago, but with the high school teacher who could draw a circle just
yes, I have. That is unreal, because it comes out of nowhere.
That was my high school.
Was it really?
It clearly didn't fix anything for me though.
Was that one of your teachers?
Not my teacher, but I definitely saw him around in the hallways. He was like, I think 6'8". He was just like massive dude, super friendly. Like,
I definitely think that would be a value add for you to track that down and put it into the comment section of
Yeah.
this recording for later.
I'm gonna do that instead of drawing circles.
Okay, so now we're gonna label each of those, and the labels are gonna look like this. All right, so one is what they want to do, and I'm sure you guys are starting to kind of put this picture together in your head now. Another one on the right-hand side is what they can do. On the bottom is what you know as the coach, and then what they need to do. So you've got this list of all these things. I want to make sure I didn't miss a chat. Okay. Oh, thank you, Taylor. So now you've got this list, right, of all these things that we identified. You guys know you're confident in terms of health and fitness programming. We said things like rowing technique, one size does not fit all. We're confident in programming the ability to run fast and lift heavy in the same week, tempo runs, mindset, mental health, and we're confident in doing something in the realm of sleep and nutrition. And then all the other stuff is very client focused. Okay. But if you don't figure out what you know first, it makes all this other stuff incredibly difficult. All right. And this is, I think, the part that coaches are maybe not comfortable sharing with others. So this is a safe space, is if you are not coaching what you know, it's not going to be very fulfilling. All right. You may be searching for things or thinking that it's going to work, but when you're really comfortable teaching something, so if I'm a swimmer, I know that I go to Michelle and she's going to be really comfortable talking to me about how to get my 1 mile swim faster. That's great. But now if I say, okay, great, I also, Michelle, want you to teach me about getting my mountain biking better, and that's not something she knows, and she tries to apply the same principles, there's a chance that it's really not going to be very fulfilling for her because she's not going to feel great about her ability to deliver. Now, when you're a new coach, that circle may be very, very small. The whole point of doing continuing education like you guys are now is to expand that circle and grow it, right? So it's super important that that's really the first one that you figure out. And then we can layer in like, okay, well, what can they do? What do they want to do? And what do they need to do? And then there's some really neat areas like in here. Well, what happens if I end up writing them a program for a combination of what they want to do and what they need to do? That sounds great. That actually sounds like a pretty decent program. But what if it's not stuff that I know or know very well? And what if it's above their ability to actually complete the task? And then we'll play the same game here, and then same game in this space. Okay. And that ends up looking like this. So what they need to do, what they want to do, what ends up happening is we can get some short-term success. It's probably going to be effective, but it's probably going to be out of our scope. Okay. On the flip side, if we look at what they want to do and what they can do, it might be unsafe. I'm not saying it's going to be injurious. It might be unsafe because it might not be what they need to do and what you know. And there's probably not going to be a whole lot of learning on behalf of the client. Okay. Now, if we get down into your competency as a coach, we're doing something that you know, and we're doing something that they can do today. Remember, in order for an adaptation to take place in the body, there needs to be some sort of stressor put on it. So if you're only giving them stuff that is like, yep, I showed you I can walk 60 minutes, and you say, great, go walk 60 minutes because I know walking is healthy, there's not going to be any stress or enough stress for adaptation long term. Now, that's not to mean that you say, okay, you can walk 60, let's see if you can do for 120 minutes. It might be go for 61 minutes or 63 minutes. Or to Michelle's point, it may be walk 45 minutes, but now I want you to find a part of your neighborhood where there's a 100-meter span that is walking up a 5-degree incline. Okay. So now we're putting a little bit of stress on the body in that area. But let's say that we play in the what they need to do and what you know area. That sounds great. Doing things that they need to do. It's going to be safe, I would bet, but there's not going to be a whole lot of buy-in. And what we see when we tell clients like, look, farmers carries are great. You need to do farmers carries. What do we hear? They're freaking boring. Okay. So it might be what they need to do, or do planks. I don't want to do planks. They're boring. It might be what they need to do and what you know, but is it going to create the buy-in? Okay. And that's where then blending it with what they want to do and what they can do comes into play. Okay. So the more that you guys can fill in for each of your clients, this little Venn diagram here, the more effective you're going to be. And you're going to get real clear on what exactly should their program look like. All right. So, excuse me, where should you spend the bulk of your time? Dead there in the center where everything intersects. Okay. So spend your time there. What's going to happen? It's going to be safe. All right. Because it's going to be a great combination of what they can do and what they need to do. It's going to be effective because it's what they need to do in combo with what you know. It's going to be long lasting because you're taking into account what they want to do. Okay. And it's going to be within your scope and provide ample opportunities for the client to learn. So here's the cool part. I didn't do this. I'm going to try to do this live. So we'll see if this works. Hopefully I don't ruin this Venn diagram here, but as your relationship with your client grows and deepens and you educate them, you make them more capable, what ends up happening is all of these circles end up, whoop, that's not the circle. I got to choose this one. All of these will end up overlapping each other. All right. Now, you as the fitness coach, because this is your profession, what ends up happening is they're never going to want and need and be capable of performing everything that you know, because your knowledge is always going to stay one step ahead. But the good news is you only need to stay one step ahead. You don't need to be 20 steps ahead. But if you focus on, let's see if I can make these go back. Oh, that worked. Perfect. Look at that. So fancy. All right. If you focus on living in that center circle, you're going to be right as rain when it comes to writing amazing designs for your clients. But what I would say that you guys need to spend the most, Michelle, I don't think you were on the call quite yet when I said this. Maybe you were. Your homework, and I would love for you guys to do this and send it to me. I know Jessica has been a really good student about doing this too, is I want to see an exhaustive list of what do you know? What do you know with regards to health and fitness programming? Because until you take that first step, everything else, you're just going to be chasing squirrels. And you're going to be, oh, what's the latest Instagram thing? I saw that Mayhem is doing this, or Invictus does that, or this swimming coach, or that kettlebell coach. All those things are going to grab your attention. Figure out what you know today. And you can always put aside, like, these are the things I want to learn and be more competent of, and then tell me. And if I know it, I'll be glad to teach it to you on one of these things. But figure out like your lane today. And then everything else comes from your conversations with your clients. Put it all together. And then you've got the greatest program that you can ever write that your clients are going to stick with long-term. Okay. So now we got a few minutes. I want to know, do you guys have any questions for me with regards to any of this stuff? Michelle, were you reaching for the unmute button there? Oh, you're getting your drawing?
I was just flipping my page over.
Awesome.
I had a question. I don't remember what we were talking about when it came up. But it was about, I have a lot of clients who travel for work a lot, and that puts extra stress on them and takes them away from some of their resources, and messes with their sleep and their nutrition. It messes with everything.
Yeah.
How would you best adapt their program while they're traveling if they want to continue to work out during that time?
Yeah. So first, good on you as a coach if you've already gotten your clients to the point where they're like, look, I want to continue to do this exercise thing while I'm traveling. I just have to figure out a good way to do it, because that's hard. And I've failed numerous times as the coach to get somebody bought in and believing in themselves enough that, like, even though I travel, I can still pursue this like healthier lifestyle for myself. So hat tip to you for your ability to get there. Um, then I think the best thing that you can do is take it one person at a time and figure out, okay, most people that travel, and I could be wrong here, and I don't want to generalize too much, but most people that travel tend to do so in pretty routine ritual ways for their work. They're going to be gone. I actually put something down in here. They travel 3 weeks every month, and they're going to similar hotels. They go to similar restaurants. So the first thing that you do is have a conversation with this client and ask, hey, what does the next 90 days of travel look like for you? If they can give you 90 days, if they can't, just go with this, a smaller time frame. The more runway that you can give yourself as a coach up to that 90-day mark, the better, because you can batch all the work that I'm about to tell you to do into one long chain versus like these sporadic 1 week here, 1 week there. So first is, can you give me an idea? Are you staying at the same hotels? Or do you generally go to the same restaurants? Figure out those answers and then say, okay, here's what I'd love to do. I want you to send me the link to the hotel that you stay at whenever you travel to Memphis. I don't know why I picked Memphis, but that's just the first place that came to mind. I've actually never been to Memphis. Anyways, so give me the name of the hotel that you travel to when you go to Memphis. Great. Go online. It'll take you 10 seconds to find it. They've all got their little fitness center figured out and, put online. You can see what they have. If they don't, pick up the phone and call real quick and just get it. And then say, hey, Mr. Jones, guess what? I just talked to the concierge there. This is what they have available. They open at this time. They close at this time. What do you think is reasonable when you are traveling to get into the gym and to do your workouts? Do you have 30 minutes? Okay, great. How many days a week would you like to do that? Well, I should probably do 5. Okay, but are you actually going to stick to 5? How about we start out with 2? Because the first thing that we need to do is just give them a win to show them, number one, that they can do this thing, and that number two, you're there for the support and the challenge for it. And do that, and then look at it from a restaurant perspective. Do you have a favorite restaurant that you always try to hit when you're there? Great. Look at their menu and figure out, like, try to stick to these 5 or 6 different meals if it's possible. What do you think about that? And just go client by client. Does that help, Michelle?
Yeah, absolutely. It helps a lot. Thank you.
Okay. Yep, absolutely. Brian, do you have questions? Are you wondering if I've done the 5-minute test or anything like that?
I am curious how it went. And were you doing American swings or Russian swings?
So years ago, we actually had a kettlebell competition hosted at our gym where they did like the long cycle test. Have you seen that? Where it's like 10 minutes worth of just, I think the long cycle is the kettlebell clean and jerk.
Yeah.
I participated for like one session of like practice for that. And after it felt like my wrist was going to snap in half, I figured this is probably not for me. I'll just stick to barbell stuff. So I have done a 5-minute test American, and it was years and years and years ago. And I remember thinking I will never do that again.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Those are a little different style than what we practice at Fuel House, where all of our swings, we go like belly button to chest height. We don't do any swings overhead unless it's in the form of a snatch. And yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's a worthy goal. It's got a lot of carryover too, like what
really
the heck
does.
effect, like it could even help your clients swimming, doing simple and sinister. You never know.
I like that. Well, before we go, any other questions from today, whether it's from the different steps, putting it all together, where do I start, anything like that? Was it helpful to
Great
visualize
slides today.
What's that?
Great slides today.
And the Venn diagram. I was so proud when I figured out how to draw that on the Google slide thing, the Venn diagram. Well, I would really, really, really love it if you guys would play along on the homework. And then like you could just, if you wrote it down, Michelle, I saw you taking a whole lot of notes. If you did that homework piece, just note taking, you can snap a picture and email it to me. I always love whenever people interact because it helps me, number one, know like what was impactful to you guys and what did you actually take away from it. And then if I get nothing, it's like, okay, well, maybe this wasn't great and we can do something else. And if that's the case, I still want to hear. But what I would challenge you with is if this wasn't helpful, tell me something that would be helpful. And I will certainly do my best to teach on that as well. Deal?
Deal.
Taylor, did you have any questions? Was that your cat that you had in the video here a second ago? Okay.
That is the asthmatic cat.
All right, guys. Well, I'll let you go. Thank you again for your time on Tuesday, and we'll see you back here next week.
Thank you. See y'all later.
Thank you.